Hi, this is Charlie Vann. I'm here with writer, director, and producer John Lee Hancock. You must know his films The Blind Side, The Rookie, and The Alamo. John, thank you for taking your time here today.
No problem. Glad to be here.
Now, I want to talk to you about the Texas film industry. Do you think it has finally arrived, or do you think it's just now barely scratching the surface?
Well, I think it had definitely already arrived. I mean, when we did A Perfect World, I think it was kind of the beginnings. There had been a lot of films shot in Texas, obviously, before then, but it was the beginning of a lot of studio movies coming here. I think the competition with different states, with tax rebates and credits and stuff, took a little of the luster off the Texas production film industry, and hopefully with the legislation that's passed and stuff, Texas can become competitive again and lure a lot of the films, especially films that are Texas stories. They deserve to be shot here.
Do you feel it's all about taking a risk for Texas filmmakers?
I think it's ultimately always about taking a risk, and that risk may not be saying, I'm going to make a movie that no one wants to see. That's how risky it's going to be, but something, I think you have to want to find an audience, but I think you have to listen to your own gut. You do.
Now, of course, there's a lot of, Hollywood motion pictures that have been filmed here, but do you think some of kind of the underdog Texas filmmaker maybe be a little bit tentative because they're like, well, I don't know if I can compete with L.A.?
Well, I think there's always room, especially now. The studios are making more and more movies that are kind of like they're either a comic book movie or something with a pre-existing sale tie-in for a younger audience. There's always going to be room, I think, for the movie that doesn't feel like every other movie. And it's harder to get those exposed. There's no doubt about it. It was easier 20 years ago to go through different film festivals and expose people to movies that then would find an audience. So it is more difficult. That said, I think unique voices usually do find a way to get out there.
What are some of your upcoming projects?
There are a couple of different things I've written that we're trying to cast right now. The Highwayman is a Texas story. Dead I Will May Be. It's a book by Adrian McKenty that I adapted and hope to do, which is a contemporary Irish mob story set in Harlem and Cancun. And then the one I'm working on now is a rewrite of American Can, which is a story of John Keller in New Orleans, a true story against the backdrop of Katrina. So it's 5 days in the life of this guy John Keller. It's a pretty miraculous story.
Now let's take a look at The Blind Side. Of course, your most recent, Sandra Bullock won an Oscar for a portrayal of Leanne Toohey. What scene was a little bit emotionally, maybe a little bit tough to do? I mean, there's a lot of emotion into this film.
I think that some of the hinge points for me were the Leanne Toohey is a force of nature, so she bulls her way through every china shop she comes across. But I think that I knew that kind of the meat and potatoes of this were going to be in some of the quiet moments. And I was just both relieved and exhilarated by, the very first time I had Sandy in one of those specific moments. And she just took it off the page and made it so much better. And so, I don't know, I felt very good about her performance, her portrayal of Leanne Toohey, and also I felt very good for the movie because she was carrying us on her shoulders.
When did you guys start working on this film? Because I saw at the end the draft footage. Was that your own draft footage, or was that just footage from the actual event itself?
Well, we had, when we started the film, we knew that Michael had a good chance of being drafted. We had no idea what would happen as he played through, as he went through the combine and the draft and everything else. But we were in negotiation with the NFL and with NFL Network to make sure that Michael was going to be there at the draft so that if he were there, he would be on stage and we could have access to that footage. So it was one of those things, he said, if this happens, we would love to be able to shoot that. So we were using existing footage from NFL Network.
How's your experience been so far here at the Dallas Film Festival?
It's fantastic. It's always good to come home. I love Texas. I love Dallas. Even though I'm not from here, I have lots of friends here. And I don't know, it's been fantastic.
Finally, for those college students that are prospects for film, what's your advice? I mean, what's the right way to go about going into this business?
I don't think there is any one way. I mean, everybody you talk to that has had some success in this business will tell you a story that is slightly 5 degrees off somebody else's. It rarely works to knock on the front door. You usually have to go in through a window. Or even when you think you're following a traditional avenue, it's just you've got to tell your stories, and you've got to get them out there, and you've got to make people aware of your talent. And then beyond that, you have no way of knowing what's going to happen. It's just when you get a break, make sure you're prepared for it. Because that's the most important thing. Because it happened to me. I mean, I was writing like crazy, and somebody in a position of power had read something and said, do you have a script? And it just so happened that I had a script that was ready to go. And I think if I would have said I have one in 6 weeks, that opportunity would have passed me by. So be prepared.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.